Now we move to Eye on the Economy, and joining us is Nomvuyo Guma, who is Macroeconomic Strategist at Standard Bank. Morning, Vuyo. Let's look at the Rand first. It's been behaving interestingly. It went as low as 9.15, 9.16. Now seems fairly set in the 8.90s.
Morning, David. Yes, I mean, the Rand has had quite a seesaw journey. I mean, after depreciating quite rapidly, it broke through that psychological 9 barrier, and as you mentioned, went all the way to about 9.16 early last week. But since then has performed more like in line with other emerging market currencies and has strengthened quite considerably. A little bit of weakness coming back into the currency yesterday. That was on renewed fears over Europe, a looming election in Italy, and concerns over a corruption scandal in Spain. Kind of took a bit of the steam off the Rand's appreciation and fell back a little bit, but once again strengthening this morning. In our view, should remain comfortably anchored within an 8.75 to 9.25 range in the short to medium term.
Right, and then we've got unemployment data out today. That's for the last quarter of last year. And of all the indicators that we talk about, and boy, do we have lots of indicators to talk about, it's the one which is the most predictable, isn't it? We do not expect any improvement there, and often it's slightly worse.
Yeah, David, and that's kind of the dark side of the South African economy, that in general, the unemployment rate, the official unemployment rate, has hovered close to 25% for quite a prolonged period now, and the unofficial unemployment rate, of course, hovering closer to the 40% mark, so quite a serious problem. And of course, as you would imagine, it tends to dominate headlines, particularly when you have a number imminent as we do today. We're expecting an unemployment rate to have edged up marginally from about 25.5% in the third quarter of last year to about 25.6%, and I think consensus isn't too far off at 25.7%. I think a lot of those job losses are likely to have emanated from the mining and manufacturing sectors. That would of course be after some strike activity that rocked the mining sector in quarter 3, and then might have had a knock-on effect on manufacturing. If you look at the PMI for manufacturing, also that employment index has been below the key or benchmark 50 level for quite a while, so it does seem that the manufacturing sector also continues to struggle, and employment prospects in that particular industry aren't particularly convincing at this point. So all in all, we are expecting a general uptick in an unemployment rate.
Well, increase in unemployment. Related to that, and surely will be down the line, is the story about the farm minimum wage, up by 50% to 105, and the claim is that this will cost a lot of jobs because many farmers simply can't afford to pay that rate. And then there's the youth wage subsidy. Now, that's been on the ANC's agenda for some time, but it's been progressing at a glacial rate. Now it appears that glacier is beginning to move a little faster. How do you read these developments?
Well, as I mentioned, particularly around the time that we have an unemployment number out, it does seem that the debate over how to tackle South Africa's unemployment rate does seem to flare up. So, these headlines headlines at the moment aren't anything out of the ordinary. With specific reference to the youth wage subsidy that you mentioned, it has been moving at glacial pace. I think the proposal was first mooted 2 or 3 years ago and has been sitting at NEDLAC ever since. So we actually haven't seen much movement on that, and it does seem in particular that unions are opposed to the move, as one might anticipate, because essentially what the youth wage subsidy proposes is that a subsidy is offered for young workers, the first time entrance into the job market, because research has shown that your probability of, or the biggest hurdle workers faced, is actually entering the job market. And if you've never been employed, then your chances of finding employment as the years go by diminish quite rapidly. So this is aimed at getting young people into the workplace, and I think the union's objection is that they fear that this might displace older workers who then might be substituted in favor of the younger and cheaper labor. So I haven't seen much movement on that, but it does seem to have come to the fore once again, and government really does seem to be pushing this forward. What it means for relations between the ANC and COSATU remains to be seen, but I'm expecting that there will probably be a further pronouncement on this as early as the budget speech.
Yes, it did seem that they'd reached some kind of accommodation on that displacement of older workers. We'll have to stop there. Thanks, Vuyo. That was Nomvuyo Guma, Macroeconomic Strategist at Standard Bank.